But I think what I love about you guys, just before I jump in, and I need to say this has to be said, is that I've known you for about 5 years now. It feels like a lot longer. But I've watched your marriage get stronger every year that I've known you. It's not like we wouldn't have been doing this if I, as a leader of people in this area and committed to the city actually thriving, knew you had written a book, but I hadn't seen it lived out. I would have been hesitant, but I've watched it get better. And I've heard the stories of pain that have actually been worked through in this to produce life. And so I want to honor you for that. I think it's beautiful. And for sure, Tess and I go through our moments together as well. And I'm grateful for couples like you that are walking through it, not backing out of it, checking out. So that's an encouragement. I want you to know that this is a couple, I mean, you're brilliant. It was brilliant, but they're living it out even better. And so that's really powerful. I want to say also that tonight, I don't know if you know this, but every ticket that was sold, I think there's about 20,000 Rand or so, is going to our foundation, which is doing work in education in the area. So that's really powerful. And again, just you're so generous like this. So grateful for that. StrengthsFinder, if they want to do their strengths, I bet you there's a whole bunch who haven't done it, want to do it. How do they do it?
Well, there's two options. You can either buy one of their books, one of Gallup's books, and get a code out of the back. Or, and the less expensive option, is to go to a website called GallupStrengthsCenter.com. And then you can just find the survey there and take it, and in 30 minutes you'll have your answers.
And like you said, you can't really point to what it ends up like. It's clever like that.
You can't, and sometimes people will say, well, I'll just pick mine because I know myself, I know who I am. Well, kind of you do, but sort of you don't. And it's the whole, I can't see myself thing. I do actually have to have, in order to understand myself completely, something or someone else. And that's why the survey is helpful to do that. It's a neutral third party.
Sure, first time I read it or did the survey, it kind of came out and I was like, that's not me. I gave it to Tish and she was like, that is exactly you, So anyway, figured out that we'd work on that. So
yeah.
You're welcome to keep sending some questions through. I've got the number with me. The first one I want to talk about, I like this idea. I want you to just elaborate on a little bit, maybe together. The goal of finding out our strengths is to maximize potential. I like how you start out by saying we're taught to fill the potholes.
Yeah.
And this is kind of flipping that on its head. It's going, no, now every conflict moment is not about what you can fix. It's about what's already there that you can maximize.
It's really true. And, I think there's this perception that we have to be all things to all people, meaning I got to be great at everything. And, man, that's just the biggest bunch of doohickey. It's not even true. You and I, each of us have fantastic abilities, and we ought to do courageously powerful things in those spaces. But we should also recognize where we're not great, and we should sort of let the other people who have those strengths really succeed in that space. So, in a marriage context, what if your wife has all those strategic, incredibly fascinating, learning, thinking strengths? Am I selling this enough? And is a wizard with the books? Can you let her pay the bills, run the household, manage the money, pay the taxes, manage the investments? Do you lose your man card if you do that?
That's actually a good thought.
What if we leaned into the way that God empowered you to be effective rather than complying with tradition that gets handed to you so that you can fit into some cultural expectation? I just think it would make life easier,
I got a story like that actually. I won't tell the full version, but we often with friends, they'll come and say I'm just really frustrated. What I want out of my daily activity and what my wife wants out of her daily activity are two different things. I want to do X, Y, and Z, and she feels like we need more space for this.
Yeah.
And I'll often say, well, who's stronger at planning a calendar? At which point they don't like to answer because often it's her. And so I would say, well, the best thing that I ever did in my marriage, and this is a true story, Tess plans our calendar. I'll comment on it from time to time, but she is way stronger and more strategic. You are so strategic, baby, and beautiful. And
all the points.
But true story, and I don't really get into fuss about what I want out the calendar.
Yeah.
It's been such a gift, and honestly, it came out of strengths.
Well, it's what we talk about in the book, don't we, honey? We talk about traditional roles, and you talk about a group of people who have been stereotypically put in a box. I think women particularly are victims of that. And I just think, I mean, I'm not advocating it. I'm not saying that everybody should do it. I just think that there isn't a legal, immoral, or unethical activity involved if you let the man do all the emotional nurturing in the family, because he's loaded with all these relational and emotionally competent strengths. I'm not, but it just so happens that I have a brother who is.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here, okay? So, scenario. We have a husband and wife, right? And there's tension in the home. They're trying to figure out what's going on. But in the background, both are high career-driven people, okay? One is more designed for what they're doing. The other, let's say it like this. Let me be controversial even.
Ooh.
The wife is more geared toward the career path because of her strengths. The husband's more geared to a different way, and now they're in tension because they need the finance, but their strengths and who they are is out of sync. What do they do?
Well, first, I want to say that sometimes we think of something as biblical because it's traditional. And we need to be really careful that we're not making traditional things biblical, because that's wounding when it's not true.
Can you give me an example?
So when we're talking about traditional roles and this gentleman that's maybe not quite as strong as his wife in making money, is what it sounds like.
True.
For him to be able to find a job, if they need both incomes, it sounds like there needs to be compromise in that way. And so if he would need to get a job, that he doesn't necessarily have to have a job that makes more income than his wife. That's not a man card thing. That's not a biblical thing. That the man has to make more money than the woman. I mean, I can't think of a scripture. Can anybody think of a scripture that says that's the case?
Yeah, it's in First Imaginations.
Yes. There's a lot of things in First Imaginations.
Chapter 7, I think, actually.
So I think finding, and I have an aunt and uncle that's actually like that, where she is an actuary, which is like the number cruncher at this big insurance company. And she makes a lot of money, and she travels quite a bit. And he's been the one that stays at home and kind of helps get the kids where they need to go. And he does have a very soft nature, and he was a car salesman. So that job enabled him to stay close, where his wife traveled more, and take care of the kids and be off when he needed to. And that's how they function.
I think this is really good. I mean, we won't stay forever in this space, but there's so many societal norms that it puts shame on a situation that's any different. Yeah. And I almost want to pull that off people that are in the room tonight and go like, actually, everyone's unique. You've said this so many times tonight. And sometimes it is her going down a path and it is him being more present. Other times it's him going down a path and her being more present. And one's not better than the other. It just needs to be true to who you are.
Yeah, you'd said to me, Allan, what do they do, right? So if the husband's the guy that's not where there's not alignment between the way he's made and what he's doing, right? Then he's going to be able to stick it out a month, a year, 5 years. But here's what happens. If I use my shoe as a hammer and I just keep whacking the heel to pound in the nail, because that's, by golly, this is what society calls for. I got to do this. Well, eventually, this shoe is going to get all beat up. The heel's going to get all janky. In fact, it's going to get so destroyed, it won't be any good as a hammer, and it won't be any good as a shoe. This thing is going to get tore up. If you perpetually stay in a role that you are not designed for, you're going to get all tore up. And the only way to fix this is to send it back to the manufacturer and have the manufacturer reset and rebuild this and then give it back so that it can be used what it was designed for.
That's great.
Right? So that guy, he's going to be able to roll with it for a minute, a week, a month, a year, 5 years. But eventually, he is literally going to say, I am dying where I am.
Yeah, and if he doesn't answer that honestly and where he's at, it's going to play out back here,
Oh,
which
gosh.
is why we're all sitting in the room
Yeah.
going, we want this to be healthy.
Yeah, he gets prickly in all kind of ways.
And so, say the roles were reversed, then what is the common norm where the man isn't bringing home the bacon, so to speak? That if he is made to feel that way, if the wife would talk to him in a way that I have the power because I'm bringing more money home, then that will never work.
So we're going to go into this now, okay? Because this is a language thing. And you guys, you took us there toward the back end of that opening session. But you spoke about how we've chatted a lot around this as well. It's helped us so much. It's going to help you. In that we know the tool now, but the language we use to build it in our homes is so important. The whole thing of being forensic in your affirmation, not just like, you're awesome, you know? And I want you to help us understand, how do we build this into your marriage? So give us examples maybe of yourselves. I'm going to give you a few others just now. We've got some people in the room who have put forward their strengths compatibility, and we're going to role play it for you. So if that was you, you're going to be blessed. But help us with how the language thing works. How do you build a culture of life in a home?
Yeah.
I love the reading example. Like,
Yeah.
how do we get husbands and wives doing 3,000 words a minute
Right.
with language?
Well, language is everything, because without it, I cannot communicate with you. I can't convey my thoughts to you. And what I love about the strengths movement as a whole is that it's all upside, right? And if you just pause for a second and consider the number of voices we hear every day, 3 out of the 4 are all telling you you stink. There's me, I'm very critical of myself. There's society telling me I stink all the time. There's the devil for sure making accusation of me left and right. And then there's God's voice. So 75% of the voices that are coming to me, feeding me data, feeding me information all the time are telling me I stink. We need help with each other, if this is the language that's running in our system, to be able to communicate hope and opportunity, and you can do better with each other. And strengths gives you a tangible way to be able to say, I love this about you. I love your relator. I love the way you relate to other people. That's not complicated. That's actually one of the names of one of the strengths that exist. And when I say that to her, I'm recognizing how God made her, but I'm also acting like a talent scout. Right? I'm calling her to a stronger version of herself, because what I'm saying is, I see God in you. This capacity called relator that you carry, that's given to you by the Lord, and it enables you to do supernaturally fantastic things. And I want to see them. So what have we got to do to make that happen? That starts a very interesting conversation.
I think there's also a lot of verbal and nonverbal when you start understanding these things about each other, like the fact that he knows that relationships, and not just any relationship, but authentic, deep, like connection with another person is life-giving to me. So on my day off, he's got a checklist of 1 million things he wants to get done. And I might go find a girlfriend and have a 2.5-hour lunch with her. And he says, go have fun, hun. Go get filled up. And he blesses me to do that because he knows that's filling for me. That's an overflow for me. And so he blesses me to do the things that are life-giving to me, even if he's not wired that way. And then even on our plane ride here, my husband's reading a business magazine, and I'm playing a game on my phone. And I can see him.
Classic,
I can see him stop and put the magazine down, and then I see all the wheels turning up here. And so I look at him and I say, honey, are you solving the world's problems?
Because I was.
And he looks at me and says, yes, with this proud look on his face, because I'm seeing him. I'm seeing his strengths actively working in that moment. He feels seen by me.
Yeah, so let's just pause there. That's a deposit. She just made a deposit in my life. And that's how easy it was. It was a handful of sentences or just a handful of words in one sentence. So it's not expensive, doesn't take a very long time, but it's a regular trickle, drip feed into each other's lives that's around a positive idea that builds each other up and calls you to a better version of yourself. You can't do that if you don't know how they're wired.
Okay, so your spouse's strengths drives you crazy.
Say it's not so.
Somebody asked that.
You are not alone.
Exactly. There are more people that wanted to ask this.
Yes.
They drive you crazy, and you've just said it's a strength, but it's driving them crazy. It's in their minds. It's not a strength.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Okay. Let me start, and then you can take it from here. So your strengths can present in one of four ways. First one is it's underused, meaning you don't know you got it. So it's not getting leveraged. It's not helpful to you. It's not helpful to anybody else. It's basically invisible, underused. Next level is it's healthy, meaning, and this short version is it's good for you. It's good for everybody else. It's healthy, right? The third version is it's overused, meaning I feel so good when I use my strength. And by the way, it's something I forgot to tell you. There's a couple glands in your brain that release an enzyme that makes you feel fantastic. Perfectly legal, highly repeatable, but very fantastic. And it only happens when you use your strengths. God has wired it in such a way that you get this Pavlovian payoff every time you do what he's wiring you to do.
That's unreal.
So if you don't know that that's what's going on and you're using your strengths and it feels fantastic, you think to yourself, man, if 3 is good, what does 6 feel like? Whoa, 6 is awesome. So you turn it up. You turn it up real loud, and everybody else around you is going, that's too much, man. Turn that down. And here's why I do it. It's not because I'm trying to be mean to other people. I'm on the juice. It feels fantastic. This is about me. It's not about you. So then it's overused. The final one is the fourth version of the way you could use your strengths is you're operating in a broken version of it, and you've misunderstood what God really gave you. It's not what he intended for you, and it's not what you ought to be giving away. And so you're perpetuating a lie, some broken version of a lie. And we talk about it in the book. It's called the counterfeit for your strength. And so if your wife's or your husband's spouse drives you nuts, there's a handful of options here. Is it being underused? Is it being overused? Are they operating in a counterfeit? Or are they just simply a jerk? Because that's also an option.
Tap yourself and say, am I just simply a jerk?
No, okay, but look, okay, you raise your right hand and solemnly swear not to tell anybody else what I'm telling. Well, forget about it. It's in the book, all right. Number 34 on my list of 34 strengths, meaning it's the least strong strength that I have, is empathy.
Tell us about empathy, because some are wondering, what is that?
Okay, so the
what does
short
that mean?
version
Because
of
theirs is
empathy
number
means that
35.
I understand. I can intuitively connect with and understand how you're feeling without you even saying how you're feeling to me. I don't have that.
It's in my top 5, and this is where, whenever we're speaking, I ask everyone in the room to pray for me.
Yes. So she could say that my strengths make her crazy because what makes sense to her from an empathetic perspective, I don't see. I'm not trying to be mean. Like literally when the arm of the radar sweeps through, there's nothing showing up. Like it's not there. Like there's no blips, there's no markers, nothing. Hers is like lighting up like Christmas. I got nothing, right?
That is true, but also
Any marriages feeling this moment right now?
I would say one of your low strengths that gives me the most pain is adaptability.
Yes, that's number 33 out of 34.
It's very low, and his ability to like go with the flow is not well.
Tell me how you really feel about that.
So I'm trying to.
Yeah, apparently.
So that does drive me crazy about him. But it does help to understand that there is a lens at which I can see things as being easy to adapt to that he cannot, that it does not come very naturally to me. So even though I may want to wring his neck a little bit, when it comes to situations in life, because don't you know, we all have to be adaptable to some level.
No.
it does help me understand him at least and know he's not trying to be a big jerk. And it brings a more tenderness to me to help him see how maybe you could just fan that one up just for a moment so we can get through this situation and then we can move on and you can let it settle back down.
Okay, this does raise an interesting topic though. Okay, so what we're talking about is a pre-existing condition called a talent. Meaning, this is something that God has given you. It is a talent. Just like you'd watch a 5-year-old messing around with a soccer ball and say, man, that kid's talented, right? Are they ready to go to the major leagues? No. What you're saying is you see potential in that person. That's what the strength represents. I have potential in these particular areas. And in the ones that I don't, when I reach into the bucket on my number 33 strengths, my knuckles are dragging the bottom of the bucket because ain't nothing in there.
I know, honey.
Okay.
I know.
So if I go to the talent bucket to go get some help to address something, there's nothing in there. I got to go to a new bucket because that's not helping me. My other two options are I learn some skill that teaches me how to behave in this moment so that I'm not a jerk. Because my natural tendency is suck it up, walk it off, you're going to be fine, okay? That doesn't work if you're standing over here praying for people. Yeah, next please. No, don't worry about it. She's going to be okay. Come on, what have you got? Don't worry about it. She'll be over it in a minute. She's crying. It's fine. Come on. What have you got?
He is a pastor.
A highly strategic one.
Okay, so wait, almost finished. So I reach in my talent bucket, nothing there. I can go to my my skill bucket and try to learn how to behave empathetically. That can help, but it's not as good as getting it from her. See, because if you get my best, I'm trying to, and you get her best, she has it, and you evaluate those two, one of those is going to come across as being so much more authentic than the other. And so you want the one that's real, right? This is Peter at the gates. And when the beggar says to him, can you give me some money? Peter says to him, I cannot give you what I do not have. So it's the same for you and I. We can't give away what we don't have. So for me to not be a jerk, I've got to go out of my talent bucket because ain't nothing in there. I got to find another way to be interactive and normal as a human being. I'm going to learn a skill, or there's the third bucket. It's fantastic. And the label on the bucket says, where you are weak, he is strong. It's the God bucket. And thank God for that. I'm just telling you, because you have no idea how many times somebody has come to me for prayer and empathy has been needed. And on the inside, I fall to my knees. And I'm just like, dear God, if you don't show up right now, I might get fired over this issue. Can you please help me with this situation? And I can't even tell you how many times I've gotten like remarkable insight over this individual and prayed for it, and they leave crying. And I'm like, yeah, baby. It's not even me. I can't even take credit for it. It's just him passing through. It's awesome.
So simple question. Someone actually just asked this right now. I think this is great. They want to know more about strengths. Like you mentioned the book earlier, but they're going like, how do I get to know my spouse's makeup better? Do we sit and chat? Do I read a book?
Oh, that's good. What do you think?
Well, when you take the test, in the most basic form, you get your top 5 strengths. Allan and I have chosen to get all 34 of ours because it really has helped us to kind of talk through all of our strengths and see what are the lower strengths, not to make fun of each other, what's in the bottom, but to be able to greater understand one another. And when you get those strengths print them out, and have a date with one another and talk about those strengths with one another. And even from our previous question of frustrations in strengths, in that first time that you sit down and talk, if your marriage is at a pretty healthy place, you can sit down and with joy talk about, oh yeah, I see you do this, and this is when I see you do it. Like, take some time to tell on one another and tell them how you see them do those strengths. You will see them in a new way, and it will light them up. Do that. But if your marriage is in a place where one or both of you are feeling pretty wounded in your marriage, For one, I'm proud of you for being here tonight. And two, take the test. And that first time that you talk together, it may sound more like, I want to see the beauty in this strength, but I'm feeling wounded by it. Can we talk about that first? So my heart can heal, and then we can move towards seeing the beauty of that strength. So you can't just bypass pain and say, oh, this is a strength. You just got to see the good in it. If you've wounded one another with your strengths and not known it, because that's, I think most of the time we don't know it.
Yeah.
We're just operating out of what we know, and we don't realize sometimes when we're walking all over somebody else. So if you're willing to enter into that hard place, get your strengths and talk about them and be willing to be humble with one another. The word tells us to submit to one another. I know it's popular to quote the submit wife scripture, but the word before that tells us to submit to one another and asks husbands to die for their wife. So there is a huge submission to one another. And I think if you will take the time to make a date night or stay at home after the kids are in bed and talk to each other about each other's strengths, you'll find some healing in those broken places, and you'll find some joy in those places where you can have words to put around something you've seen them do their whole life.
Yeah. So when you finish your survey, it gives you the results right away, and it sends you a PDF. You can print that off. There's like 20 pages in there. There's going to be some description for each of those strengths in there. There's going to be some thoughts for how to improve each strength. Question you could ask each other, question you can ask yourself. And so use the material. And this isn't a race to the grave. Like, take your time. Like, we could spend a little bit of time here getting to know one another and allow your curiosity to come out. So what we've done is we'll go out for some coffee or something to drink, and then I'll get her papers and she gets mine. And then I'll read to her the paragraph of description to the first strength. And then along the way, if there's something in there that I think I see her do, then I'll stop, put the paper down, and I'll go, okay, so I got to tell you about this. So do you remember last week when you were at church and then you were at the door and then that couple came in and I don't know what made you do it, but you just grabbed the lady and pulled her aside and said, oh, I've got some, and you started talking. You should have seen her face. You should have seen her face when you do that stuff. I mean, I've seen you do that 100 times. Every time you do that, I just think to myself, this woman, who is she? Like, how did I get so lucky? I love when you do that. There's a bunch of things going on here. First of all, while I'm reading to her strengths, I'm learning about who she is. Secondly, she's learning about who she is. And then thirdly, that I can affirm that I see she has the strength by giving her an example that she didn't even know I knew, now deepens our relationship.
Big points. Big points.
And depending on what category of strengths you have, it may even end well with you that evening after the date. Don't use it for manipulation tool. But that's one of the ways you get to know each other, is to just be curious, ask some questions.
I love how when it comes to the strengths thing, a lot of it, because we get excited to do our StrengthsFinder. That's what happens. We get the room going and everyone's like, I can't wait to go and do my strengths because I want to know what I am like. And actually it's not for you. The gift is what you give away.
Yeah, that's so good.
And I think that's what I've loved about how you've journeyed this one out, because although your strengths light up and you get excited and you realize this is what I'm born for, because when you read those paragraphs, like every one of the 34, honestly, doesn't matter what you are in the 34, every single one of them makes you feel like I was born for something.
Yeah.
And so you start lighting up and it feels like this is brilliant. And then the mistake you can make is, let me go and, as you said earlier, project what I expect others to be based on who I know. This is just who I am. And the gift is now to give this away with humility and honor. And I think that's what you were saying around language. Actually, when you celebrate another's strength, it's like yours have permission to come alive.
Yeah, Stephen Covey wrote a lot of really great stuff. But in his books, one of the things he repeatedly says is, seek first to understand before being understood. And that one statement is so, so powerful, because if you could posture all of your interaction with other people with the perspective that says, I think I would do better if I could totally understand where you're coming from first before I even launch into what I have to say. Because it may end up being that once I've finished hearing you, I have all my answers, so I don't have to speak anymore. And it's not about who wins or who speaks or who doesn't speak, but it's just a posture of, can I prefer you in this moment enough and value you enough to go, I want to understand what you have to say before I even bring what I have to say. Because if yours is a response, which is really what it should be, then it can't be delivered until this first thing has been completed. If all you're doing is waiting for the other person to stop talking so you can speak again, that's not communication. That you're a dictator. You can't have that. So seek first to understand before being understood. And one of the powerful ways to do that is with your strengths.
That's great. Okay, so are there any strengths that stand out? This is maybe helpful for someone in the room that's done the StrengthsFinder trying to figure their own life out. I'm not sure how this figures marriage. That on entrepreneurial side that's helping a guy figure out where he's going?
See, this is such a great question because the answer is no. Because imagine if there were only like 5 or 6 strengths that made for entrepreneurs. If you don't have those, tough luck for you, pal. No entrepreneur for you. That doesn't seem right. God is not a respecter of persons like that. And what makes for fantastic entrepreneurs is that people with different sets of strengths bring their artistic, creative thinking, feeling ideas to this challenge when it was only ever dealt with by the very analytical folks and they couldn't solve it. But it took a feeler to go, you know what the problem is here? So there are no sets of strengths that necessarily cause you to be or not to be an entrepreneur.
I think that's great. So here's a question. We got someone asking their strengths and their spouse's strengths. 4 are the same on each side, not in the same order.
Yeah.
But 4 are the same. So they're very similar.
Yes.
Does this play out in any kind of way? Have you seen this play out? Is this something they need to be aware of?
Yeah, so I think this is very, very effective in your communication with each other because you obviously have a makeup that makes it so that you tend to understand or see each other well. I mean, you may have the kind of relationship where you finish each other's sentences, like, oh, yeah. So that's happening. And then you have a lot of similarities. There's things that you like together. The danger in that relationship, if there was one, is that you could fall into the same old super easy. Because you both know what works and you're very comfortable and it's easy to get there. So you almost might have to work just a little bit harder to keep things interesting. I mean, just remember when we were kids, we went outside and we played and we experimented with stuff and we built forts and we tried things, and there was like a flame in your eye, you know. There's like this, wow, what could be? And then when we get older, we fall into this. Who's taking the kids to school? Have you made the sandwiches? I didn't iron my pants. Oh, I'm gonna be late for work. And it's just all the routine. All we talk about is the routine, and we don't play anymore. And I think one of the best ways for a couple like that who've got a lot that's similar is to find ways to play. Put some spice back in your relationship again.
That's good.
There can be a point, too, where having the same strengths can really give you, like if you both have competition.
Ooh,
and you're both competing about everything. Like sometimes some similar strengths can make you knock heads. So strategic as well. We laughed about packing the car, like letting Allan do it because he's strategic. Well, strategic is 10 on mine. And I do think very strategically, especially relationally. But I have thought while I'm watching him focus and pack the car so meticulously that this could be done a lot faster and it would still fit.
You don't have to say it like that.
But if you both have strategic, you're number 1 or in your top 5, and you both are like, mine's 10 and I can like give it up for him, even though I still think I could do it. But if you both have it in your top 5 and you're both trying to pack the car for vacation, you could be really, like you could literally be getting in World War III kind of fight in your marriage.
So why does that always happen when you're getting ready to go on vacation?
I don't know. When
Someone
you go to
actually
church,
commented on the questions. They were like, I can't wait to go on vacation with Allan.
Come on, baby, we're going to tear it up.
Who wants to go with me? Yes.
Okay, so we're at a lockdown. This is the question. We're at lockdown. We know each other's strengths. We refuse to celebrate each other's strengths. We're in a cycle of I refuse to go into what you're good at because you won't tell me what I'm good at. Okay. What's the process of coming out of that? I think there'd be a lot more people in this room, if we're really honest, that get into what we call that crazy cycle than we care to admit. Yeah. How do we walk out of that? Yeah.
Well, I would first want to address, again, you're here. I think that's pretty amazing. There's a desire there. I would say that you have some wrestling with the Lord to do in getting your heart soft. There's probably a lot of wounds in there along the way, which I'm sure a lot of them are very understandable. God can do anything. God can breathe into dry, dead bones and bring them back alive, and he can bring your marriage back alive. Yeah. He can without a doubt, but you do have to be a participant.
Yeah, that's true.
You do have to, even if you don't feel like it, your feelings don't have to be a part of it at the beginning especially, but you do have to be a participant of saying, Lord, my heart is hard. My heart is hard. I don't want to do this, but I believe in you and your ability, and so I invite you to soften my heart. Strengths can't solve this problem. A hard heart, strengths cannot solve that. But God can, and he will. You have to invite him into that space and allow him to see your spouse in a different way than what you have now cornered them into being.
Thoughts from my side of the fence are somebody has to be the bigger person. It's going to take one of you. And if you're in a spot where you're feeling like we're in lockdown and there's nobody's going to give the other an inch, I think part of what the challenge has been is that over a window of time there's been there's been a window of time where there's been no affirmation. I refuse to see you, you refuse to see me. So fine, we're just going to, well, that's no fun. And it's not going to get any better if you leave it like that. And it's not going to miraculously pop and one day you wake up and go, oh, sweetie. Like someone's going to have to be the bigger person.
You mean there's no magic pill?
There's no magic pill.
But we came here for that.
Yeah. No, the solution is perseverance and fighting for what you know is right, fighting for the good thing. Yeah, if you're in here, it's because you know that there's still hope and you want it. And so I want to encourage you to move. If I were you, I would start with picking one strength, beginning to understand how that strength motivates your spouse, and finding a way to affirm that individual around that one strength, just little bits at a time. And one step at a time, I think you can walk your way out.
Do you want to comment?
If I was you, I would go to a counselor.
And then talk about your strengths.
Yes, go to a counselor. Like, strengths is not a fix-all for everything.
Yeah, sure.
And if you're at an impasse, go to a counselor. Allan and I have gone to a counselor at least 3 times in our marriage now. And you may look at us, laughing or making jokes or being able to talk about all of these things that maybe seem hard to you right now. But we've worked hard. We've worked hard for our marriage.
Sometimes you just need a referee.
Yeah.
You just need somebody to say, knock it off, you're being a jerk. And you need to fix the thing with the other thing. Do that. You just need to referee a little bit. Because then you go, oh, okay. Yeah, I can do that. And then it gets better.
I want to just jump on the thing you said just now. One of them needs to be the bigger person.
Yeah.
And that's quite a humbling moment when you realize you're not the one that's the bigger person in the room. I've been there. And as men, just to be honest, we want to be the hero. In our story, in our marriage, we weren't at a good place like 3 years into planning this church, and we were figuring life out with little babies, and we've told you some of the story, and we were like in the same house, but we were not in the same house. Yeah. And we took some leave, and we had some friends speak into our lives, and I was going to fix the marriage, right? I was gonna fill the potholes in and get this highway going again. And she started affirming me. And she started saying things about me she had seen since I was a kid, and it undid me. And I hated it because I was like, I can see what she's doing, and it's working. You know, and I think you need to hear that because, you know, you're sometimes like, I want to be the one that wins here, even in fixing by being the bigger person. Like, there's no winner here other than we both go somewhere together. Yeah. And I think it's really powerful when you realize sometimes the other is in a better place and their love for you is helping this thing move forward. Yeah. And that's a humbling but very powerful thing to walk through. Yeah. When you realize, actually, you don't right now hold the card that's going to move it forward. She may. Or he may, and you got to let them love you into that through strengths or through whatever that looks like. Really okay, so somebody asked their mother-in-law, and they asked it with a smile, I think. I can't see the text, but has a huge impact on how she does things in our home. And I'm really struggling to figure out, related to strengths, how to move forward building a strengths-based marriage when she's stuck in traditional ways. It's kind of all linked, but you have any advice on that? Yeah. I reckon there's like 3 people maybe in the room.
So the mother-in-law lives at the home with them?
No, she's not connected, but like the wife is a version of her, and the husband's going like, this is not you. We've already done the surveys, we've read the paragraphs, but you keep defaulting to how it's always been done, rather than giving permission for us to write a new story.
I see. Anyone? Yeah.
Like somebody said, you got Jesus in your heart, but granddad in your bones.
Ooh, whoever said that is a genius.
The marriage genius. Okay, we got 10 more minutes.
Yeah. Okay, look. In our house, I'm going somewhere with this. In our house, we have 2 stories. And the rule for the kids is you can take food upstairs, but when you're finished, bring the plates and the knives and forks back downstairs because we don't want no ants and all that, right? One day, I go to get some yogurt. I pull the drawer open. There are no spoons in the drawer. And I'm just like, I know where they are. So I go upstairs, and they're all in one of my daughter's rooms. And I'm just, oh, come on. How many times do we have to have this conversation? Like, this is a stupid spoons, you know. And so I start going bananas, and God just reaches into that moment, and he goes, hey, the thing is not the thing. And I heard him as clear as day. He just said, the thing is not the thing. I'm like, I was busy yelling. You just interrupted me. But like, wow, this is a really profound idea right now. So what do you mean? He goes, lean in and try to figure out what the thing really is. So I just stop cold turkey right there. I slide my back down the wall, sit on the ground, and I say to her, but sweetheart, but really, like, how are you doing? And she's in her mid-teens or whatever, and she starts telling me about a story about this girl that's at school, and they used to be friends, and now they're not talking, and it's this stressful thing. And so then we get into it, right? And you know, I lingered, we prayed, it got better. I picked up all the bowls and the spoons and went back downstairs. But what I realized and learned in that moment is more often than not, the presenting pain is actually not the challenge that you're facing. There's something else that's back behind that. So in this particular case, if this person, male or female, is holding too desperately on to some other version of themselves, it's because there's an insecurity or a brokenness connected to that. And if that's just the displaying, like that's just the presenting, that's the spoons, right? So don't respond to the spoons. Get behind that thing and try to figure out what's going on. But you're not going to get it if you start yelling. How you deliver that conversation really matters.
I would say along the lines that Allan is sharing is learn how to be a good question asker.
That's great.
So tradition can be very hard to break. And we've traveled and talked to pastors trying to teach them about having a culture of rest. Pastors are notoriously horrible at resting and caring for themselves because they're busy trying to care for everyone else. And literally, we have been told, you don't get it. Americans, you don't get it. You don't live here. You don't understand the culture. No, we cannot do that. And so my response to that is, well, Jesus must have had it really wrong. Somewhere along the line, we decide to put tradition over what the Lord tells us. And we're way off when that happens. And so if you can become a good question asker, why are we doing it that way? That's good. And make them think about it, because a lot of times you keep cutting the end of the roast off when you cook it, because that's the way Grandma always did it. And when you finally ask Grandma, why do you cut the end of the roast off? Oh, well, I never had a big enough pan for it to fit in. And she's doing it that way because she thought that's how you make a roast. You cut the end of the roast off. So you get stuck in these traditions and these patterns, and when you won't ask questions, you don't find out, like, why are we doing this? And maybe the whole purpose for why it was done like that is like way gone. We have bigger pans.
And I think that brings you where you started. You're unique. Build you.
Yeah.
You know, just because your friends figured it out that way doesn't mean that you will either. I got a few role players before we close up tonight, okay? Yeah. So if you're in the room, you done StrengthsFinder, some of these might speak to you. You're going to tell us how to win with these strengths combinations. Okay. A minute to win it. Jack, who obviously doesn't exist, but for the sake of this exercise, has adaptability, includer, maximizer, consistency, and connectedness. Jill has discipline, deliberative, consistency, maximizer, and empathy.
Okay. So right off the bat, I see that there's some strengths there that both couples have, like both of the two have. And so there's going to be some shared ideals that are in there. But then his need for adaptability, it was Jack, right, who had adaptability?
Yeah, up front.
Isn't just that he can flex from one thing to the next.
He should be your best friend.
He should not be my best friend. He's going to make me crazy.
That would be fun.
You are so cruel. So his need to do adaptability or to be able to adapt isn't just that he's good at it. He actually needs environments to adapt to. So if they don't show up, he'll create an environment that allows him to adapt to, because it's a place where he can show up and feel like, look at me, ta-da. So he probably will lean toward moments that are a little bit crazy because it'll allow him to be able to adapt. I imagine the spouse in that situation feels like that's a little bit destabilizing.
Yeah. She's much more structured.
Yeah.
She's got consistency.
She's got consistency, exactly. So I was getting there. So the consistency piece, though, is an unbelievable sense of fairness. Like, we're going to treat everybody the same. So when it comes Christmas time, if we spend $75 on that cousin, dang it, we're going to spend it on every one of the cousins, because 75 is the same for everybody. Consistency, we got to be fair. Got to be the same. If you got consistency and you're driving on the freeway and some person gets on the yellow line and starts coming past everybody while they got bumper-to-bumper traffic, that stuff will fry your goose in the worst possible way, okay? I mean, you're the person who's going to pull over into the lane and go, not on my watch, pal. You're going to stay right back there, okay? You can pretty well bet some money that person's got consistency, because fair is a big deal for them.
You just help someone because they haven't done the StrengthsFinder, but they keep getting in the yellow line. So you're consistent.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Jack is futuristic.
This is a different Jack, though, right?
This is a new Jack.
Okay.
He's futuristic, he's an activator, he's positive, he's strategic, and he's a woo. Jill is strategic, achiever, activator, belief, and command.
Okay, first of all, these two need some Ambien. Okay, because they have got so much energy and so much movement, and they're both running in different directions at the same time with so much perseverance and strength. Like, I don't know how they sleep at night. There's a lot of energy in the room with these two folks. Like, all
they
this.
Don't.
All the activator and interest in getting things done, strategic thinking and ideas about what tomorrow's going to look like. They've got a lot of optimism about tomorrow. And by the time they get there, they've got even new and more optimism for the days that come beyond that. And I just think it's going to be very inspiring to hang around this couple. I think that they both feed off of each other. I think that they're going to make each other better. And I think that they are really optimistic about what tomorrow looks like. And
that command can be strong, how might that person be misunderstood?
Are you leading the witness right now?
I am a little bit.
Okay, command people have an intuitive ability to bring structure where there's disorder. And they just feel like, okay, this is a bit of a mess, but if you'll just let me get my hands on it, I'll bring some structure and organize this so that it works. Now, my way of commanding and bringing structure might make it work, but it may be different than somebody else's. Doesn't mean one is more right than the other, it's just different. But folks with command have a need to be able to bring the right design or the effective design to a thing that seems to have not the right structure or not the right.
With a lot of confidence.
Well, of course, if you're going to pull that off, you need to. I mean, like if you're going to try to bring structure to a big organization, you got to be able to present it strong so people understand. But don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk.
Hashtag, don't be a jerk. All right, last one, and then we're going to close up if that's cool. I know we could keep talking for a long time, and I want to say thank you again for coming out. And we actually bought a whole lot of copies of the Strengths-Based Marriage book, which is really helpful, by the way. A lot of what we've spoken about tonight is kind of in the book. And we sold them all out on the weekend. So this is a terrible marketing pitch right now, and it's not meant to be that. But I want to say, if you're feeling like, I just need to get my hands on that thing, I need to actually pay attention. I need to go and sit with my spouse across the table and read out some paragraphs. I need to get my head around the strengths thing, because it's not just a quick fix. There's a journey to go on here. I really do recommend you get your hands on this. And you can get them at Cum Books. You can buy them on Amazon. They can deliver them to your door. You can buy them for your whole staff team if you want, and every friend you have in society. It would be helpful.
That would be great.
Yeah.
It'd go to a needy American family.
Yeah, with 2 girls who are getting married. One married, one still to get married.
Thanks for that.
So I just want to encourage that, because it is important to, I think, resource ourselves. You know, you're here tonight. It's a good first step. And so let's dive into that. Tess and I, we bought each of ourselves a copy, because we're like, we can't do this together until we know what we're doing, you know. So, okay, last Jack and Jill. Is that cool?
Yeah.
I'll just give you the top 2 of each.
Okay.
Jack is strategic and ideation. Jill is harmony and consistency.
Okay. Strategic and ideation is a person who loves to begin with the end in mind and has ideas for days, okay? They got ideas for ideas, and if you don't like the first 20 set of ideas that I just came up with, wait 5 minutes, because I got another 20 back and right up to that, okay? They just come like popcorn. This is the situation. And then any idea that comes, it's like, you know what, and we could pull this off, because we can begin with the end in mind, so figure out a way to go from here to there, and we can get there. See, this is easy. The other individual, though, has got this sense of harmony, and what did you say?
Consistency.
Where like their motivation, their drive for life is that everybody could get along, that we could do this cohesively. So they're far more interested in building a unified team and being able to do that with fairness, treating people right, bringing people along, because you can't have harmony for one. It's about communities of people. So one's interested in the stuff, the other's interested in the people. And they could make a really powerful couple if they would learn how to defer to each other, to be able to get power from each other. Oh, this makes me think of something. Can I say one more thing? Sure. Okay, so I have a leading role at Gateway, and but I just had opportunity to replace my assistant. She'd been with me for 4 years, and she went home to go be with the kids. And by the way, his name is Zane, and he has a fro like the best. It's like fantastic. So I'm looking for another assistant. What I want is not somebody who looks like me. I want somebody who has power where I don't have power. That's great. So I'm looking for someone who has got strengths where I don't have capacity. For example, I'm great at thinking of things that I want to say, but they come across, because of my focus, very sharp. I mean for them just to be clear and simple, but they can be sharp. And then that doesn't come over as winsome as it could be. So I need an assistant who has the ability to communicate and some winsomeness, so that I can write my email, give it to her, and she can read it and go, yeah, I get that. Oh, no, we can't say that. Okay, so we're going to say, and so she'll rewrite my email for me, not to change what I want to say, but to change how I say it. And then when it leaves, the net export from my office is a win, because it's got. But I can't get there if I'm a stubborn, pig-headed guy who thinks he knows everything, right? I've got to acknowledge that somebody else's strengths could be advantageous and helpful for me. Because what strengths does is doesn't celebrate you as an individual, although it does. It doesn't cause you to drift to isolation. It actually brings us into interdependence. because you're fantastic, but you are too, and we need each other because what you're great at, I'm not great at. And that's what comes to mind with this couple. I really feel like they need each other. Like, one of them has all the strategic capacity, the other one has amazing relational capacity. I mean, get those two together and export that thing as a unit, that's a win right there.
And although harmony is very much, they want things to be in harmony, if it's not, they can be great bridge builders. Like, it can drive them so crazy if something's not in harmony that they will go out of their way to help bring harmony to that situation. So they're not always just these passive kumbaya singers. Like, they really can be the ones that get in the middle of, no, you get over here and you get over here. We're going to work this out because we need harmony.
We will
here.
have harmony. Yeah.
That's great. So this is what they wrote at the beginning of the book, and we're going to close. I'm going to ask if you guys could just pray for everyone in the room.
Oh, I'd love to.
For some, they would be on a God journey. For others, maybe not. But I think tonight God could do something in our hearts. They said this in the beginning of the book. They said, we dedicate this book, and I'm grateful that you did this, to every couple that has suffered relationally from avoidable pain caused by a lack of knowledge of each other. And our prayer is that you would find understanding and peace and fall deeper in love through the revelation that is in this book. I want to say thank you for coming out and being with us here in South Africa. Come on, let's appreciate them.